Welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time within 30 minutes so that your current affairs get covered in a short span of time and you have rest of the day for covering other parts of your UPSC syllabus. Now, just watching this lecture would be job half done because just after watching this lecture, you need to revise this lecture as well. Because revision is extremely critical in consolidating these current affairs in your memory for longer periods of time. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. Now, the link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. Okay, you just have to click on that link. It will take you to our Telegram channel, and from there you can download these necessary notes for completing your revision. Okay, so let's begin our discussion. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics in today's lecture. So today's lecture is going to be short and crisp because there are not many topics for our discussion from today's newspaper. There were only 3 news items that were of significance from the perspective of civil services examination. And these 3 news items were Genome India project, because recently Prime Minister Narendra Modi released the data which was surveyed or which was sequenced during Genome India project. So we'll talk about this. Then recently Ministry of Agriculture has made it mandatory for bringing your farmer ID for registering under PM-Kisan Yojana. So what is PM-Kisan? What is farmer ID? We'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about a recent controversy made by Donald Trump. Donald Trump says that he will rename Gulf of Mexico to be Gulf of America. Now, whether he can do that, how can he do that? We'll talk about this. Okay, so these are the 3 important topics which we'll focus our attention on which we'll focus our attention. Okay, so let's begin our discussion, starting with topic number 1, which is Genome India project. Okay, now to understand what was in this project, first of all, to know what genome is. So genome is our complete DNA. In very simple terms, I'm trying to explain this in very simple terms. Okay, now what is DNA? DNA contains all the information about our physiology, about our how tall we will be, that is encoded in our genes, in our DNA. What would be our skin color, that is encoded in our DNA. How much growth hormone we would produce, what would be our digestive system be like, how would be our muscle growth, everything related to our body is encoded in genes. Okay, and we inherit these genes from our parents. That is why we parents, right? Now, all of this information is encoded in our DNA. Everything related to our body. Okay, how our hair will be like, what would be our endocrine system be like. Everything is encoded in genes in our DNA, and we inherit this from our forefathers, from our parents. Now, the thing is, people with different genes or people with different DNA respond to different medicines differently. Okay, a particular antibiotic might work on someone but might not work at all on the other person. Why? Because they have different genetic predisposition or they have different DNAs. Because they have different DNAs, their body types is different, and the medicines working on them would behave differently, right? So we need to know our entire genome properly. Okay, plus there is one more thing. Genes or DNA or genome of Indians is slightly different from genome of Europeans, is slightly different from genome of Africans. So the medicine that works on Africans might not work on Indians because Indians have small genetic variations in their DNA, right? Now, to know all of this, we need to know our entire genome, what each gene segment does. Okay, so to create a genome data for India, okay, India launched Genome India project. Under this project, 10,000 Indians will be selected from 99 different populations, different people in different regions. Okay, and their entire genome will be sequenced. Now, genome sequencing means to crack the information related to what every gene segment does. Okay, so let's suppose an Indian's DNA or genome has a gene called A. Okay, that gene controls the height of Indians. Then he has a genome B, gene segment B, that controls digestive system. Then genome C, that controls the absorption of nutrients in the blood. Everything is encoded in our genes. And to extract that information out, we do genome sequencing. Okay. Now, under Genome India project, we have resolved to sequence the entire genome of 10,000 Indians. Now this project is complete, and recently Prime Minister launched this data set, okay, which contained the entire sequenced genome of 10,000 Indians. Now this was a big data set. It was 8 petabytes of data set, okay, which contained genes of all 10,000 Indians. Okay, and this 8 petabytes of data set is stored at Indian Biological Data Center. Now, Prime Minister Modi hailed this as a milestone in biotechnology research. And it's actually a milestone in biotechnology research because now Indians have the data, the genome data for Indians, of Indians. Okay, in India now has the genetic sequence or genome sequence of Indians, right? And this will be very significant for creating personalized medicine. Okay, because this data will be used by researchers to create medicines that are specifically tailor made for Indians, that would work on Indians, because Indians have different genome, right? So let's talk about this project. So it was launched in 2020. The Genome India project aims for whole genome sequencing, the entire genome sequencing of 10,000 Indians from 99 distinct population. Now, it will be supported and funded by Department of Biotechnology. The goal is to create an exhaustive catalog of genetic variations. Okay, how India, how different is Indians? How different is the DNA of Indians from other people? And within India also, what are the different genetic variations? Then it will also establish a biobank for DNA and plasma and use this data for research, especially in research in pharmacology or pharmaceutical drugs. All right. Now, what are the benefits of this Genome India project? First of all, tailor-made medicine. As I've mentioned before, the project will boost the biopharma sector that Indian diseases are treated with Indian remedies. Okay, because Indian diseases affect Indians and Indians have different genetics. And because they have different genetics, they respond differently to these diseases. Their symptoms might be different, and the response to medicines might also be different. Okay, so we need tailor-made medicines for Indians, since the genetic makeup of Indians is different from others, and hence their response to medicines is also different. Okay, plus this data released or this data generated by Genome India project will be shared for research. Department of Biotechnology also released a framework for sharing the highly sensitive data. By the way, our genetic data is highly sensitive. It cannot go into wrong hands because it will be misused. Therefore, Department of Biotechnology came out with a proper framework of how this data will be shared with researchers. This data would only be available to those research institutes which have partnered with Department of Biotechnology for their research. You have to do collaborative research with Department of Biotechnology. If you're doing your own research, you won't get this data. Okay. And to ensure data privacy, samples from different regions are collected and sequenced by one partner institute, and they would be encoded before they are uploaded on central database. So first they'll be encoded, encrypted, okay, and then they will be uploaded on central database so that no one can get access to a person's genetic data, and that person doesn't misuse it. Okay, so it's a very big breakthrough in the field of biotechnology. It's a very significant discovery. Okay, not discovery, but project. This is very important. Okay, so these are the benefits. Now we'll move on to our next news item, which is linkage of farmer ID with PM-Kisan. All right. Now, the center, especially Union Ministry of Agriculture, has made it mandatory for new applicants to PM-Kisan Yojana to obtain a farmer ID. So all the new applicants to PM-Kisan, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana, okay, all the applicants, new applicants to this Yojana should have a digital farmer ID with themselves. Okay, only then they'll get registered under PM-Kisan and they will avail the benefits under this scheme. All new applicants for the PM-Kisan scheme will have to first get registered with Farmers Registry. Once they are registered with Farmers Registry, they will get a farmer ID and they will use that farmer ID to register for PM-Kisan. Now, this is a significant move because every month, 2 lakh new applications come to PM-Kisan. Okay, PM-Kisan is a very valuable yojana or valuable scheme for to help farmers. Okay, that is why there is considerable demand for PM-Kisan yojana among farmers. That is why every month 2 lakh new applications come. So from next time onwards, you need a Kisan ID or a farmer ID, and you can generate that farmer ID from farmers registry. Now, what is farmer registry? What is farmer ID? We'll talk about that. But first, let's talk about PM-Kisan. Okay, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. Okay, so it is a central sector scheme. First of all central schemes are of two types: centrally sponsored, the other is central sector. If Government of India is launching a centrally sponsored scheme, then the funding for that scheme will be shared between center and states. Generally, 60% is provided by center and states provide 40%, but it varies from state to state. Okay, so in case of centrally sponsored schemes, funding is shared between center and states. But in case of central sector scheme, 100% funding is provided by center. Okay, so PM Kisan is a central sector scheme which was launched in February in 2019 and is implemented of agriculture. Okay, now under the scheme, what happens is that every year 6,000 rupees are transferred to the bank accounts of farmers directly into their bank account. Okay, this process is known as DBT, direct benefit transfer. So every year 6,000 rupees is transferred into the bank account of farmers so that farmers can use this money to cover their operational cost of buying seeds, fertilizers, pesticides and whatnot. Okay, so these 6,000 rupees are dropped into the bank account of farmers in 3 installments. Okay, so 2,000 uh, uh, each installment. Okay, 2,000 with each installment, and they are dropped directly into the bank account. Now, which farmers are eligible for this scheme? So first of all, you need to know the farmers must possess land. So land owning farmers, so basically sharecroppers or tenant farmers are excluded from this. Land owning small and marginal farmers. Okay, not large farmers, small and marginal farmers are only eligible for this scheme. Now, who are small and marginal farmers? Look, basically in India, farmers are categorized into 5 categories based on their land holding. Okay, if a farmer is owning land less than 1 hectare, he's called a marginal farmer. If the land possessed by that farmer is 1 to 2 hectare, then that farmer is small. Okay, if the land possessed by that farmer is between 2 to 4 hectare, then semi medium. Okay, if the land possessed by a farmer is between 4 to 10 hectares, then it is medium. And if a farmer possesses land that is greater than 10 hectares, then that particular farmer is categorized as large farmers. So I don't think large farmers are in the need of these 6,000 rupees, nor are medium farmers. But small and marginal farmers, for these small and marginal farmers, this 6,000 rupees per year can be life saving, right? That is why only small and marginal farmers, that means those farmers whose land holding is less than 2 hectare, are eligible for this. And who would identify these small and marginal farmers for PM Kisan Yojana? The job of identifying beneficiaries under this Yojana is that of state government, state or UT government. Okay, so funding will be provided by central government, but the beneficiary list will be prepared by state governments. Okay, and mostly marginal and small farmers are included in this. All right, now this is PM Kisan Yojana, and now government has made it mandatory to get a farmer ID before registering for this PM Kisan Yojana. Okay, now what is farmer ID? So first let's talk about this. So farmer ID, Kisan Pehchan Patra or farmer ID is an Aadhaar like unique digital identity. Like Aadhaar has a unique digital number, similarly farmer ID is a unique digital identity, and this ID is linked to states' own land records. So state governments have land records. In those land records, it is mentioned that this land is owned by this person, this land is owned by this person, right? So this digital ID will be linked to states' land records, and those land records contain information like demographics, crops sown, ownership details of the farmer, everything would now be contained in a farmer ID because farmer ID is linked to state land records. Okay. Now, farmer IDs of all Indians, okay, throughout India, farmer IDs that would be generated throughout India, that information shall be stored in farmers registry. So farmers registry would contain farm IDs of the entire country, and along with that farm ID, information regarding demographics, crop zone ownership would also be there. Now, farmers registry is part of the three registries launched under AgriStack. Okay, so I'll tell you what AgriStack is. Hear me out carefully. Okay, the thing is that government launched digital agricultural mission. Okay, this digital agriculture mission aims to provide digital solutions to farm problems. Now, under this digital agricultural missions, there were three things that were launched. One was AgriStack. Okay, the other was geo-reference village maps. So geotagging of village maps would be generated, and crop zone registry. So the data of the crop zone in India would be there. Okay, so these are the three components of digital agricultural mission: AgriStack, georeference village maps, and crop zone registry. Now, AgriStack further has three registries or three components: farmers registry, okay, which will contain farm IDs. Then the other is Krishi decision support system. This will contain satellite data, drone data to help farmers. Okay, and the other is soil profile maps. This will have the soil profile of our entire country, which region has which type of soil, this soil is rich in which nutrients, all of that, soil profile maps. So these three things are part of AgriStack, and AgriStack is part of these three things, which are digital agricultural mission. Okay, the government has set a target of creating 6 crore farm IDs by March end this year. Now, the reason why government has made it mandatory to have a farmer ID before applying for PM-Kisan, because while applying for PM-Kisan, you have to give a lot of information to the government. Okay, and that process takes a lot of time. You have to fill a lot of forms. But now, if you'll just use your farmer ID, the government would have access to your information beforehand. Okay, you don't need to fill all the forms specifying your information. That information would already be included in your farmer's ID. So the registration process for PM Kisan would be fast. Okay, it would quicken, right? You had to fill a lot of forms. Now you don't have to fill a lot of forms. You just have to mention your farmer ID, because the data you would have mentioned in those forms is already included in farmer ID. Okay, so this actually fastens registration process. Okay, this is the idea behind making it mandatory for farmers to have farmer ID before registering for PM Kisan. All right. Okay. And now we'll move on to our last news item, which is a bit funny but controversial. Donald Trump announced that he will rename Gulf of Mexico to be Gulf of America. Now, Gulf of Mexico actually adjoins Mexico and both America. So he says that America needs to be great, so we'll rename Gulf of Mexico to be Gulf of America. Okay. Now, in response to that, because Mexicans got angry that Donald Trump made that statement, right? So the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, said that we will change the name of North America, the continent, to Mexican America. And how did she substantiate the argument? She said that before 17th century, in fact, all the 17th century maps refer to North America, the continent of North America, as Mexican America. So why not go back to that? Okay. So she made a statement that we will rename North America to be Mexican America. Donald Trump says that we'll rename Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. By the way, she is substantiating her argument that earlier North America was called Mexican America. Donald Trump is just making this argument on his own. Okay. Now, this is not important for us because this is funny, controversial, and UPSC won't ask questions about Donald Trump or Claudia Sheinbaum. Okay. Or this funny controversy. But the thing is that UPSC might ask you a question on whether United States can unilaterally change the name of a water body. Can it happen? And if it can happen, what is the procedure to do that? Okay, so we'll get into that. Now, first thing first, if Donald Trump decides to rename Gulf of Mexico to be Gulf of America and gets the entire governance architecture of United States to affirm to his decision, then too, the name won't get changed. Why? Because if the entire country of USA decides to rename Gulf of Mexico as Gulf of America, well, it is up to other countries whether to recognize this renaming or not to recognize it. Okay, so United States can rename Gulf of Mexico to be Gulf of America, but people only in America will call it Gulf of America. All the other countries are free to call it whatever they want. In fact, there is an organization called International Hydrographic Organization. This organization ensures that all the world seas, oceans, and navigable waters are surveyed and they are mapped properly. It also provides names to some of these seas and oceans. Okay, but even International Hydrographic Organization does not have the authority to change the name of a water body and force it upon everyone. Currently, there is no protocol or treaty or agreement to name water bodies. Okay, there is no formal international agreement. So any country can call any water body the way it wants. Okay, Gulf of Mexico is famous. It is recognized all over the world. So all countries would choose to call it Gulf of Mexico, even if USA decides. This would be only applicable in USA. Basically, naming of water bodies is free for all. Anyone can do anything. But if any country decides to do anything, that decision won't be applicable on other countries. Okay, so Mexico can choose to call it Gulf of Mexico and USA can choose to call it Gulf of America. So there is no formal agreement in place which changes the name of a particular water body for all in the world. Okay, now about International Hydrographic Organization, you need to know about this. So it is an intergovernmental organization that works to ensure all ocean navigable waters are surveyed and charted. It was established in 1921 and it has 100 member states. India is one of them. Okay, USA is also has the membership of IHO, and even Mexico is a member of IHO. Now its secretariat is in the Principality of Monaco. Monaco is an island in Mediterranean Sea. India has been a member of this since 1955. In fact, India has its own organization called Naval Hydrographic Department, which is responsible for surveying water bodies in India. Okay, it was established during British time in 1874 in Kolkata. All right, that's all. With that, conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'm sure it to your preparation, but it would add more value if you revise this lecture also. Okay, like I've mentioned before, revision is extremely critical in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. So please do not forget to revise. All right, and on that note, I'll sign off. Thank you so much, everyone.